Hey everybody, welcome back to Jeff Needs Sports. Tonight I've got my partner back. I got Dan Felton back, and we're doing the NFL playoff report. And here we go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Dan, you're back.
I am.
I just want to open the show with saying I think the jinx is over. This is two this is two shows in a row that
Yeah.
I haven't ruined your weekend.
Right.
so
Right.
for anybody that doesn't know, this is I think this is our fourth show of the football season. We kind of try to
Yeah.
do it every couple months. And the first couple, me and Dan scheduled a show, and his beloved Rams lost the week that we scheduled a show.
Yeah.
And so so now there's an unspoken jinx that we don't talk about. So me and Dan won't text each other about doing a show until after the Rams victory of whatever the most recent week is. So it's
Yeah.
like I could tell all weekend, Dan. I was like, okay, no, we're going to do a show next week, but I know he's not going to say it, and I'm not going to say
Yep.
it. I'm certainly not going to say it. So I wake up Tuesday morning at whenever I get up for work on Eastern Standard Time, like we'll say 5 in the morning. And the first text I have is, okay, we can talk about doing a show now. So anyway, congratulations to the Rams, and I'm glad
Thank
to
you.
have you back on, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm glad to be back, Jeff. And yeah, it's sort of turned into a nice little unspoken tradition now that it's just we're not booking a time until we're clear. And even even when they were up like 28-0 or something, I was like,
No, so
no.
let me tell you a little story, Dan.
Yeah.
So earlier in the season, about midway through the season, a lot of people remember this was a Monday night game, yeah, I think it was a Monday night game. I called them the Baltimore Colts, Indianapolis. That's how old I am, everybody. So fuck off. The Indianapolis Colts are throttling the Baltimore Ravens. And so I get in the chat room in the Off the Ball Network, and a friend of ours, Stewart's in there. He's a huge Colts fan.
Yeah.
And I said something about, wow, the Colts look really good or whatever. And he's like, oh, don't say anything, Jeff. Don't jinx it or whatever. And I actually text basically to the effect of, don't worry, Stewart. There is no possible way that the Baltimore Ravens are going to outscore the Colts by 25 in the next couple quarters. You're good. I
Yeah.
go to sleep thinking game's over. I get up the next morning. Ravens and Lamar Jackson pull out a victory. I immediately had to apologize. So therefore, I would never do that again. The other night I wanted to text so bad because it
No.
was obvious. It was obvious. Like, we can look back now
I
that the Rams were winning that game.
Of
Didn't
course it
matter.
was, but it doesn't. I mean, you have to remember that this was the 2 weeks ago against San Francisco. They were up
Well, it
17
was
to
over.
Yeah, it looked like we had locked it down, and then of course, the San Francisco 49ers are on a murderous hellbent revenge spree of getting
We've talked
back
about
into
it all
the
year. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but we'll get to that later. We talked about it all
Yeah.
year, like San Francisco does not play around. So anyway, I just want to say I learned my lesson, everybody. I do not text Dan before the final whistle sounds on any Rams game. So first of all, I think probably our second show of the season, you and I discussed you've tiptoeing. So if anybody doesn't know, Dan does the Assorted Goods podcast. Great podcast. It's 100 times better than this one. Sounds better, is better, better research, everything. I say that every time. It really is a great show for everybody. He kind of
Don't
does it.
sell, don't sell yourself short, Jeff.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I'm a sports podcaster. I understand I have a shelf life. Your stuff will live on a little longer. So we discussed a few, early in the season about you delving into the world of sports. I've always encouraged it. I've always thought you'd be great at it because I know your passion for it. I know your eye for it. You know what I mean? You're just the right guy. So you've done a couple now. The first one you did was on the concussion, issue in the NFL. And then a few weeks ago, you did something near and dear to my heart. You talked about the NIL. I don't know how to explain it because I never want to say it's a rule because it's not a rule. They essentially got rid of rules to let freedom take over, however you want to say it. So you did a show on the NIL and college football. I thought it was great. And, I told you I could probably do a 2-hour show on it. But what I want to ask you, because I know how much, because, just of our friendship, I think we call it friendship at this point. Like our,
I'm comfortable with that.
the way we talk back and forth, I know how much research you do. I know how much you sell out for these shows. And so I'm like, okay, I don't want to do 2 hours with it. Everybody go to Assorted Goods and listen to this. It's really good. Who did you interview, Dan? I forget the gentleman's
Well, yeah,
name.
my
I don't
my
want to.
guest for the show was a lawyer named Bruce Siegel, who
Yeah.
has over 30 years of experience in the fields of sports and intellectual property rights. So I mean, he was a perfect
Oh,
guest to have. And honestly, I have to shout out Billy DeClerc, who does a couple of podcasts of his own, laying down the law. And he's also part of an improv comedy podcast that I'm forgetting the name of right now. He was the guy who set me up with Bruce,
oh,
and
shout out
and
to
through,
Billy.
through yeah, Billy came through really big. He knew I was into the NIL stuff, so he hit me up. So yeah, Bruce is. I mean, he's a perfect guy to talk to. He's
Yeah.
worked closely with the NCAA and sports licensing over the years. He knows better than anybody. So yeah, his expertise is definitely needed because I couldn't have done that one on my own.
No, it was awesome. It was a great show. So I just limited myself to one question, and I basically, I gave you a heads up. I kind of paraphrased it as this: like the NILs right now, we've all said this. It's the Wild West between the transfer portal and the NIL. College football is the Wild West right now. And what's awesome though is like people get their panties in a bunch. It's been like 120 years of college football, and this is the first time the players have had any say in anything. So let's not get carried away with like it's Armageddon.
Yeah.
I understand as an Ohio State fan, like, oh, we don't want to lose what we had. Well, that's because what we had was some of the best free
I don't
labor
look
in
for
the
let me
history.
let me quickly allay any Ohio State fans' fears. Of all the people who are gonna be shaken up by this, you're not one of them. You're in that class of people who is only gonna benefit. Your school is one of the largest on earth. You will be
Yeah.
in the beneficiary department of this rule change, I would say.
Yeah, so all my Buckeye Remix fans, all the Buckeye fans, put it these. But here's the question I had: everything right now is leaning towards the players. Like I say, again, for 6 months. This is how long the players have had any say in their lives and making money and selling
Yeah.
cars or whatever they want to do. So what I ask you is, how are these schools, universities, the NCAA, whoever, the guys that already had the money, how are they
Right.
going to try and screw this up? How are they going to try and combat it? How are they going to try and take the control back from these players? Like after everything was
Yeah.
said and done, something popped in your head and you're like, here's going to be the counter. Here's going to be the counter attack.
Well, there has to be a pendulum swing back the other way. The first thing I think of is the sort of legal drafting of the documents that the players and the athletes signed, the letters of intent that they signed. You know, for college football fans especially, signing day is purely about, Photoshop edits of guys with their star ratings and their rankings and all that crap, and that's what it's primarily about. But behind a signing day is the signing of a legally binding document, the letter of intent, that is all the stipulations of the NCAA and what it means to be a college athlete. Things, the ways you can get kicked out. It's your agreement to join this organized sports. So I think the first place they'll probably start is to try to reword pieces of the letters of intent that are signed between athletes and their schools. That's how they upheld the previous versions of name, image, and likeness rights, which were none for years, is through the LOIs. So the second way I would say that they're probably going to go for it is the most classic, I mean, as American as apple pie, which is that any billion-dollar industry is probably going to find a way to lobby the government to step in on their behalf, because the NCAA continuously loses lawsuits for about a decade now. This is why the NIL rules are in place now. They continuously challenge these. I mean, the whole reason that they got to where they are right now is because they won a lawsuit and then appealed it despite winning to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court unanimously hammered them back down into what we have now. So they got greedy and got screwed. That means to me that there are legal precedents that they're going to be able to get back to, but I don't think it's going to be that beneficial for them. I think it's changed now forever. It'll get reined in a bit. I don't think this unlimited anybody can do anything anywhere rules are going to stay, but probably lobbying the government and looking to sort of push a few votes on a subject or get a few bills proposed in certain places, and then maybe run it up the legal chain to the Supreme Court again. But they're going to have to come up with something either on the individual level or on the overarching legal level, which is kind of how they've already been boned as it is. So those are the two avenues that I can see that they're going to maybe start chipping away at this. But to be honest, Jeff, I don't see it stopping for the athletes, and B, going back. I think if anything, this is going to keep going until there's pretty much freedom of movement in college sports across the board.
Which is crazy. As someone that's grown up, I live in Ohio. Our first love is, the Ohio State Buckeyes. It's
Yeah,
university sports, it's college sports, and to be old enough to see what's happened from start to
yeah,
finish. Like, I can't believe where we're at now. Like the other day, I see Jackson Smith and Jigba on we have a huge, local car dealership here called
yeah,
Reichert Ford, and they're arm in arm and
yeah,
literally doing what this always bugs me, but it's water under the bridge. Like, they're literally doing what we like accused programs
mm,
like Miami,
yeah.
Alabama, Ohio State for doing for all these years. It's a car dealer arm in arm with the one of the best players on your football
Eric
team.
Dickerson's probably looking around right now going, "What the fuck, man? What are you talking about?" Like, he's wishing
It's
he was just ahead of the curve evidently. Like, it's
yeah,
yeah, you're right. It's all
which is
the
crazy
last 20 years
because
of scandal go down the toilet.
and if you go, don't even get me started about scandal. Like,
Yeah,
we gave up what probably would have been a national championship contending team
sure.
because they traded
Tattoos or
they
whatever,
traded
yeah.
their own merchandise for tattoos, but it's neither here nor there. So I thought it was a really great interview. Once again, we could I want to delve into this, but
Sure.
that'd be all day.
We'll
So
circle back around to it.
everybody, please go to Assorted Goods and listen to this. Every sports fan listen. I'll make sure there's a link in the show and all that. But it's
I
fascinating.
appreciate it.
The one thing that you guys spoke of that, and I'll give you credit personally. You guys are the first that I heard this was okay. So what happens when we get to the point where, okay, you want to pay players, but then what happens when a player doesn't perform? He basically gets
Right.
fired. Nobody's thought about like a
That's
college
well,
football
that's
player
the
being
legal
bad.
Wild West thing that you're talking about that
Yeah,
we touched on. The fact is that right now it's pretty much a one-sided handing out of money
yeah,
that, like an NFL team has a contract that's, again, another
yeah,
legally binding document with a lot of stipulations. There's not really that the money is just sort of going from A to B, but there's not a lot of legal binding sort of serious stuff in between them so far. So there's going to be it's sort of a middle period here where that happens,
yeah.
and you're right that if a team decides, I mean, Clemson's quarterback right away get like a huge sponsorship deal before the season started because he's a Heisman Trophy favorite and all that, and then he played like crap for most of the year. So that
Mhm.
that sponsor is probably going, you were supposed to be sitting in New
Right.
York at the ceremony, and you're struggling to hold on to your job right now.
And that's what I said. So and I said, here's like nobody knows this because I'm the only one that has. I wrote an article on this, and I never did publish it on offtheballnetwork.com. By the way, offtheballnetwork.substack.com. By the way, check that out. So I never published this article, but my final line of it was, "What happens when Skechers is more
Mm,
important to a quarterback than Nick Saban?" And that's what I was bringing up, and
sure.
that is where I see not the downfall, but that's when we're going to have the transition because as soon as a coach is like, get in there, and the player's like, ah, you know, quote unquote shoe company doesn't think it's right for me to play to play against Jackson State.
Right.
That's finally we're gonna have the breakdown. But then, like we've talked about it several times, well, that's
Yeah.
fine. But then now you're gonna have a head coach that makes $10 million a year telling a player not that
Yeah.
this is when it's finally everything's going to come to a head.
Yeah, that's that sort of the sort of the what if scenarios that people get hung up on of,
Yeah.
well, what's going to happen when this happens is, just like in pro sports, they'll just cross that bridge when they come to it. You can't,
Yes, exactly.
the potential what ifs can't be a detriment to the good pieces of what's happening right now. So
Right.
they'll figure that out if it happens that way, if it comes to that, but it's not something that I think
Yeah. What
is
I compare it to, and neither one of us are old enough to like actually like remember it happening. It was when Kurt Flood fought for free agency in baseball.
yeah, yeah,
That's the closest thing because I can remember growing up, like free agency is going to ruin the world,
right, yeah.
and exactly what you said. What it doesn't matter. It happened, and
If
now
anything,
we're
free agency was good for the sport good for the sports and creating a more parity in
Yeah.
most of them. I mean, baseball drops the ball because they have no salary cap, and that's just stupid. But
Yeah.
in leagues like the NFL, free agency is one of the reasons
Yeah.
why every team always has the opportunity. Everybody with cap has a chance to jump in. I think college there is, and I don't ask me why because I can't get into details really, but I think there is a potential to maybe save parts of college football is centralizing itself for years now. There's really only 5 or 6 teams year
Yeah.
after year who are championship worthy, and I think maybe this gives an opportunity for. I mean, one of the number one recruits in the country went to a lower division school, went to
Yeah.
play for Deion Sanders. Why? Because NIL makes it.
Yep.
What's the difference between me making 50 grand at Jackson State versus making 50 grand at Ohio State, where I
Yep.
get to be the guy down here and do something cool instead? I think there's actually a potential to level the playing field and create a little more parity in college sports. So maybe I was wrong before what I said about Ohio State. Maybe you guys should be quaking a little bit. So
Well, they are. We'll stop it here because you made a great segue that I should have took on. But
sorry, it's my fault.
No. I should have. But the combination of the NIL happening with the same way as the transfer portal, that's what's really made it crazy because schools can't threaten a kid. Because here's what's going to happen. A freshman's going to go to, play for Deion Sanders, make his money. If he's good enough, then Ohio State's going to be like, well, hell, we got 30 people that can give you that money in an NIL. Come play for the Buckeyes. So what we're going to see now is this period where young players are going to go one place. The shifting of talents. We've never.
Exactly.
I remember I was watching the Bottom Line last week, Dan, and quarterbacks from all over the country and college football are changing teams, and it's on the ticker. I never dreamed in my life something like that would happen. Like we still have Caleb Williams out there. Like we're not 100% sure where he's going to play.
Exactly, Jeff. The transfer portal is just a weirder, stupider name for free agency.
That's
all it is. And
again,
and for honestly what I was saying before, and I'm backtracking on telling you Ohio State fans is fine, and maybe people like Alabama and Clemson should watch out for this too. Is what I'm saying is if you're a 5-star prospect, for years it's been I'm going to go to Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson. I'm going to go to the top schools because I want to play for a championship, and because if I win that job, I'm pretty much a top draft pick ready player essentially. Now these guys can look around and go, I don't have to go to Ohio State to compete for a job with 3 other 5-star players. I can go to a smaller school and start for 3-4 years, make the same money I would have made there because of some local car dealer or whoever wants to shell out the cash and a sponsorship. And I'm going to make my own path. So parity may be in the future of college sports, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think it's great. I think it's great. I think the last thing I'll say on this, I promise, this is actually the last thing I'll say on it. Because first of all, so everybody knows, I did this entire show to trick Dan into talking college football for a half an hour.
I'm fine with that.
Because he's you're such an objective college football mind. Because if I interview somebody from the South, they're skewed. If I interview somebody from Ohio, if I interview somebody we can't have a conversation.
I'm Canadian. I got
Canadian.
No horse.
They don't even. A lot of people don't know this. No universities in Canada. A lot of people don't know that.
True. It's true. We literally just, we all sit around a campfire in the snow and that's how we all.
But the last thing I'll say is this most recently, they had a chance to expand the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
And I stand by it that when they all got together in that room, they said, we can't expand the college football playoffs right now because the combination of the NIL and the combination of the transfer portal, we will have kids going everywhere, and all of these programs like Ohio State that make more money, Alabama and Ohio State, like their TV ratings blow everybody out of the water. Like they are cash cows. There's no way that they're going to let anything even out until they can get their chunk. And I will stand by that. The reason they didn't expand the playoffs was because if we expand the playoffs, it's over. It is over. Like this, this team down here with one booster that has $5 million to buy a quarterback, all of a sudden CJ Stroud's transferring to whatever, so.
And I'm sorry, I have to say this one more point, which is that for years we know that these teams have been paying players. I mean, it's just anybody who's out there who's like, well, they've always been paying players. It's just now you're allowed to do it openly, which means that the teams with the resources to carry out some clandestine operation of slipping people money, now everyone's got the chance to just walk up and hand guys cash at any school, anywhere. So now it's more the teams at the top are probably thinking, shit, the jig is up because we've cornered the market on paying players, and now it's open season. So again, parity's probably coming to college sports. Their rights are going to get even more expanded as they go. I don't see there anything wrong with anything unless you, for some reason, have nostalgia for, college football as it is right now. But
right.
how different is it going to be, really?
Well, I mean, I remember there's a lot of nostalgia about college football.
Anyways,
I also,
we ought to get.
I also
to the
remember
pros.
this. I also remember the '60s when all the black players from Texas had to go north.
Yeah, exactly.
So where does our nostalgia stop? Anyway,
Right.
So speaking of 5 minutes ago, the NFL playoffs.
Oh yeah.
Before we get to the Rams report,
okay.
What is overall the wild card weekend? When I came out of it and I talked to fans and I talked to everybody and I look at Twitter, here's what I hear: we that was a terrible weekend, and we didn't need the expanded playoffs. So my question to you was: are there too many teams in the playoffs now?
I think. Well, first of all, the wild card weekend was probably the worst one that I could remember in a long time. I don't really think there's too many teams because objectively, I'm not sure there's that much of a difference between 6 and 7. I mean, most of those teams tie if they're with their records or a game apart at worst. It's the one rule that I would really like them to implement, and I think every sport should have this, is that any wild card team that finishes with a better record than the 4th place division team gets the home game. Like, Arizona played the Rams because the NFC is stacked and the Rams did finish ahead of them, but that was a 4-5 game. You know what I mean? That was 12 wins versus 11 wins, but it could have easily been, 11 wins going on the road to play an 8-win team, which is ridiculous. So if they're going to expand the playoffs, they need to have some sort of countermeasure. I mean, I know nobody in America is even aware that there's a Canadian Football League, but I will say that there is a rule in the Canadian Football League, although it's only a 9. Sorry, I'm fuzzy on it too. I think it's a 9-team league right now, and it's, I think, 5-4. But they've had a rule for years where if 3 teams from each side make the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, and the rule was if the 3rd place team in the one division was worse than the 4th place team in the other division, then the 3rd place team doesn't get in, and the 4th place team from the other side league gets in, and they just jump to the other side of the playoff bracket. They just move them over. So there's some sort of contingency. If the NFL is going to keep it at 7, I think they need to put something in, because this home away thing is,
there's going to wind up being a really bad team. Like last year, Washington got a home game.
Yeah.
And they were awful. Tom Brady had to go to Washington and play. Right. After winning, he probably won 12 games last year or 11. I can't remember offhand. This all started with, I'm sure you remember the earthquake game when New Orleans had to go to Seattle to play.
I remember how Seattle got into the playoffs that year, which is
8-8 Seattle or 7-9
Seattle. 7-9 Seattle got in because they beat the Rams in the final.
I knew it was going to come back to the Rams.
Yeah, and that's right. And because the Rams blew that game, Seattle ended up hosting New Orleans, and that's the famous Beastquake run of Marshall.
I'm just curious. Here's a little Rams trivia. I don't have the slightest clue who the quarterback was for the Rams that day. Who do you think it was?
I know exactly who it was. It was Sam Bradford's rookie season when he was still really
holy shit! I forgot.
He was really up. Yeah, he was having a really good rookie season. He was rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year that year. So he was. Yeah. We got down to having a chance at the playoffs last week of the season. Oh my God, this is pretty cool. New quarterback, he looks great. And then obviously, now we're in the future, and we
shout out to Sam Bradford. He hung around for a minute.
He tried, man. Just bad luck.
That was post Mark Bulger. He gave you guys a glimpse. He gave you guys a glimpse.
You guys don't even know. I mean, for someone who questions how long I've been a Rams fan, people don't remember the years of death between Mark Bulger and Sam Bradford, where we had Kyle Chandler and not Kyle Chandler, the actor, Chris Chandler, who was like 41 years old and literally couldn't complete a pass. Jeff Smoker, Ryan Fitzpatrick for a brief period when he was young and hadn't been on his first
I forgot about
teams. There were some dark.
Hey, shout out to Tony Banks. Shout out to Tony Banks.
Pre-Kurt Warner days, man. You're really going back.
Dude, I remember the Jim Everett days. Like I'm so old. It's ridiculous.
I was still yet to enter the world, I think, at that point, or close to it.
Yeah, it would have been really, really close.
Yeah,
really close. Anyway, that's great. I just love going through like this. I would have never guessed. And Sam Bradford, here's how funny it got, because at one point we had Matt Stafford, we had Sam Bradford, then we had all these other quarterbacks coming out. So at one point we called every kind of below average white quarterback. We just called him Brad Sanford because nobody would. If you would have said Brad Sanford right there, all my listeners would have went. All my listeners would have went. That sounds
think
right.
about it. Yeah,
It sounds right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a. I agree. It was a rough week. I thought the season was too long, if we're being honest. Like, it really drug on. I'm not saying the games didn't matter, but it felt like teams had a chance to say, okay, so there's two sides to this. Cause I've always said, a lot of people were like, extend the season, like all injuries will get worse. And I also said, wait a minute, some guys will come back from injuries. You guys have one. Cam Akers might be like, I love Cam Akers. Like, he had, I mean, that week helped. Like that extra time helped.
Terrible against San Francisco. He actually, when he came back against San Francisco, he ran a few times that I thought, oh, he's just he's a shell of his former self. He'll be, this not. I don't know what happened. I don't know what kind of Mike Jordan secret stuff he had, but during the week, but man, he looks better than he did before.
He jumped off the screen last week. Yeah. So that's what I was told about. Like sometimes guys come back, like Hopkins. Could have came back for like the Super Bowl or whatever. Derrick Henry might be back this week for the Titans. Yeah. So like, so there's not, but I just, as a whole, like even me as a giant football fan, I'm like, okay, let's get this party going, people. Like not only do we have more playoff teams, we got more games. We're really dragging this out. And I'll be the first one to cry as soon as the Super Bowl's over. Y'all see me on here doing a show like, I can't believe football's over. So I talk about both sides of it. So, all right, let's do the Rams report. This is a good week to do it. Yeah. So I'll tell you my take on the Rams this week. I picked them to win. I still think they're really, really good. I think Cooper Kupp is worthy of, I think he's going to finish third in the MVP voting. I really think he should. I think he'll finish third behind the two quarterbacks behind Rodgers and Brady. I thought he had a great season. It's amazing. I think the defense was as what I thought they should be. Von Miller has got a little better. Yeah. I think Stafford played a really good game the other night. I still don't even think it was like his best game. I think you'll remember this. I think his best pass was an incompletion that the receiver didn't even catch.
Yeah, Cam Akers didn't get his head around
it. It was Akers, but the guy hasn't played. So, but to me, I would rather have a quarterback that makes the right read and hits the guy in the helmet and he doesn't catch it, to be like, okay, he's aware of what's going on around him.
Right.
Yeah. Everything is going great. And I said this about the Rams all season. The one thing that we don't want to happen is Green Bay get home field advantage. And that's what Green Bay did. So Green Bay did their job. But as of right now, as a Rams fan, I'm going to let you go a little bit.
Okay.
Because they look good.
Yeah.
They going forward. So like, where are the Rams right now? Where's your stock on the Rams right now?
Much higher than it was last week, because after that San Francisco game, I had lost faith. I lost faith in Sean McVay again pretty badly.
Again, you and Sean Vay have a complicated relationship.
Look, for some a National Football League head coach chest bumping his players in the end zone during a second quarter touchdown.
Okay, that's weird.
Against your biggest rival, who you haven't beaten in 3 years, I lost so many points in my head for him at that point. He coached a hell of a game on Sunday, and so did Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator. Yeah. I mean, part of that is the fact that the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, second half Kyler, Cliff Kingsbury is a real thing now.
We kind of nailed this Cardinals thing too, by the way.
I think earlier in the season we may have.
You want to go back and listen to me at Dan's episodes. We predicted this.
Yeah, and it seemed to be true. So, part of that maybe made them look better than they actually were. But offensively, when they run the game plan that they ran against Arizona, I actually don't know if there's anybody in the league who can beat them. Yeah. Because, especially if Cam Akers is the guy running the ball, because if you saw the way he was running, you start to wonder, geez, they went 12-5 without that guy. Can we imagine what their offense would have been like with him for the season? So, if they can run the ball, they ran the ball far more than they passed. Matt Stafford pretty much had to game manage, but made good throws when he needed to. That's the formula. Sean McVay's a sort of pass happy. He's from my generation of playing Madden and airing it out. Like, he's the kind of guy who needs to realize that some of the best football they played all year is when they have dominated the run game and lengthened their possessions and just held on to the ball and given their defense a chance to actually like sit back down and talk things out and get on the same page. The team functions best when they're all firing on all cylinders and they're playing playing balanced football. So if they run the ball like that, I think they can beat anybody. But it's just a matter of whether or not they actually stick to that game plan, because there is Sean McVay is as likely to go out against Tampa Bay and have Matt Stafford throw 55 passes as he is to do what just worked. So it just comes down to sort of game day management. But I mean, the way they played against Arizona is hard not to have faith a little bit.
And here's what I'll say about McVay, and this is a positive and a negative. I think he also is because you talked about it, the Madden syndrome. It feels like when he doesn't get 5 yards per carry, he abandons the run. And I think sometimes that's a mistake. He doesn't he's from this generation of like, it's not working, just go away. And I get it, because I'm sure that if I'm standing there watching Matthew Stafford throw the ball in practice, I'm like, why would we ever not throw the ball? So I think you nailed something there. So I got a couple questions about the Rams season before we go into this game, because this is a big game. This is a divisional round against defending world champions, against the greatest player that ever played. Where are you at and satisfaction level with the Rams? Like expectations to now, where are you at?
Probably exactly where I expected them to be, which is weird to say as a Rams fan after a decade and a half of just despair. But at the start of the after last season, I mean, here's the thing: we're at the exact same point we were at last year. With Jared
that's
Goff
going to be my follow-up question.
That's the thing. This is the game we were bouncing last year. I mean, it was Green Bay in Green Bay, and they played decently well. Like the Rams didn't get blown out
because of that game. Dan, let's just talk. But they got Stafford
because of the previous 2 years of Jared Goff, really.
Yeah.
And
that was the game that they win that game with Stafford. Like they just win it with Stafford.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's what I mean. It was a competitive game, and our quarterback had a broken thumb on his throwing hand. So
that's a good point. To be in fairness to Goff, like he was legit in actually. Yeah, I think Goff played as good as he could in that game with his hand, like going back. I don't want to sound like I'm piling on him.
But Jared Goff will always have a soft spot because he beat Seattle at Seattle with a broken hand.
And he went to the Super Bowl. Like,
I'm sorry,
he took us to a Super Bowl. And he lost a Super Bowl that I haven't been in since 1984.
I would love nothing more than to see the sad Detroit Lions franchise and sad Jared Goff's career come together to find real success together. And Dan Campbell's great too. So
that's the real Canadian in you, because no American football.
I'm very close to Detroit. I'm very close to Detroit. I've been there a few times, and the people have always been lovely to me. So I have to hope for the best for them. But it's this game coming up is tough to wrap my head around.
This is it, man. This is it.
Yeah.
As a college, I'm a college football fan. We put a ceiling on our teams that we have to get there. Like you don't have to, like, if they don't win this game, they had the same season. That's hard to take.
Yeah.
With a better team. I mean, there's I'm not trying to put pressure on you.
But that's why I say that this game comes down to coaching essentially, and there's great coaching in this game. You got Bruce Arians. I'm not a big fan of him, but he's got a Super Bowl.
I was going to say, let's be easy.
I know.
But
Byron Leftwich,
he's an awesome guy to drink beers with. I don't know,
of course, but we're going to see Byron Leftwich versus Raheem Morris.
There you go.
Tampa Bay's offense versus the Rams defense is. Both guys are in head coach consideration. Byron Leftwich for the Jacksonville job to me just seems like the most obvious no-brainer in the history of no-brainers. Right. But it's a showcase for both of them, basically. Who's gonna out scheme the other guy is I think a pretty meaningful matchup in its own way.
So here's what I see, and I want to go farther than I don't put this all on Stafford. I think as to this point, Stafford's at just even. Like I had to do this. I won because unfortunately in the NFL we erase the wins. Like you won 12 games. That's pretty hard in a really, really good division. And a pretty good NFC. The Rams didn't. So Stafford's done his part. This game here's what I saw last year. Tampa Bay plays Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay goes, basically cover 4 shell defense. They get all this credit for shutting Mahomes down. I've watched the tape 100 times. It wasn't that as complicated as everybody says. They have really good players on the field, but it wasn't the 85 Bears like they made it out to be. But if I'm McVay, I think this is all on Sean McVay, this game. I don't think it's on Stafford. I don't think it's on anybody except McVay. Like, wait a minute. they couldn't solve this defense last year,
Yeah.
9 months ago. It's not that complicated. I have to be able to come up with something, and it's not going to be till probably because right now Tampa Bay's linebackers are playing really well. So Akers is
Yep.
it's gonna be a feeling out process that first quarter. That second quarter, McVay's got to be like, okay, here's the hole, here's the hole, here's the hole. Like, don't run into their linebackers. Like, you got to start recognizing blitzes and all of these things. So to me, this game is about Sean McVay proving like why he's the
Yeah.
genius.
Well, this is what I'm saying before about the run game and the fact that they've been significantly better when they were more run heavy than pass happy is exactly that. And Tampa Bay is a team that their offense thrives when they can run the ball, right? So giving Sean McVay calling the offense has to control the game with the run game in order to give his defense a chance to have the wind to shut down Tampa Bay's run game. Because if you shut down Tampa Bay's run game and you force Brady to go back there, he's Brady, but he's also playing without Godwin, without Antonio Brown.
Yes.
It's going to be a case of matching up. I mean, are anybody not named Evans and Gronkowski going to do enough to make an impact for Tampa Bay's offense? And on the Rams side of the ball, they've got to control the game to keep their defense fresh. And the way you take those linebackers out of it is they run a really effective inside zone game. These guys are fast. If you try these, jet sweeps and stuff, that's what Kansas City got boned with, which exactly that. We're very fast, and Tampa Bay said, that's fine. We have big guys who can match that. So to beat them on the inside with the inside zone run game, which is what Cam Akers is really good at, and Sony Michel, traps those linebackers in awkward spots and create seams to get productive running. And then from there, you open up your pass game. But it's controlling the game, calling a game offensively by McVay that gives his offense a chance to control time of possession and just take the air out of the ball so that his defense cannot, every time the Rams have lost this year, there's been these like 12 play, 8-minute drives by the other team that his defense just gives up over and over again. So limiting those, it comes down to coaching and controlling the time of possession. I think that's going to be the difference. You can't give Brady that many chances to score because he'll do it eventually.
And I said this too. So I work at in my hospital. I work with a Rams fan. So he loves it, and he's fun to talk about. He's pretty knowledgeable. So I see him today, and I'm like, hey man, I got a show tonight with Dan. I'm like, what's your keys? And that's the first thing he brought up. He's like, I was like, man, they're down. I was like, if they can control Evans, and he's like, man, Gronk, Gronk's the problem. So I'm going to ask you, because he didn't really know either. Like, who's the answer to Gronk, or is it just as simple as I don't watch the Rams enough to know what they do in the back end on defense. Like, I'll just admit that right up here, just because
the back end is complicated because
and you're without Fuller.
Yeah, Jordan Fuller is one of the most important players on the team, but nobody knows who he is, despite the fact that he's really vital. So without him, it's going to be tough. But I don't think the Rams have anybody who match up well against tight ends this year. There's been a couple of emerging players. Number 32, Trayvon Howard, who's playing middle linebacker. He's getting reps. He's kind of a hybrid safety linebacker and plays that sort of role.
My favorite position.
Yeah, he played great, and he graded out very, very well against Arizona. So if we get the one middle linebacker, Ernest Jones, back from injury, it's a rookie who's played exceptional. He's sneaky good in the pass game, and Trayvon Howard's very fast in the pass game. They're going to have to bracket coverage Gronk and probably match Ramsey up on Evans, even though he's not a man island corner anymore in this defense. But it's I don't know. They have nobody who can stop Gronk singular matchup wise. Like, they can't man anybody on him. So it's going to have to be some sort of high-low bracket coverage, safety help with a guy like Trayvon Howard covering him. But I mean, they've got guys who can do it. It's whether or not Raheem Morris can scheme something that doesn't leave, Scotty Miller burning them for a touchdown.
That's what I was going to say.
Like
I worry so much about, like, people have tried to bracket coverage Tom Brady for 20 years, and it just Wes Welker's made a living off of it. Like, all these guys made a living off of it. That's a tough matchup. Like, that's the one. So I got one bonus question. Before we move on here. So, if you could pick one defensive player from Rams history to play in this game that to make a difference, who would it be? That's
Easy.
a great question. I think that might be one of the greatest questions I've ever asked.
Easy because I've thought about it already in the last few months.
Wait a minute. Why have you?
And right now,
I just thought about this 2 seconds ago.
I think I saw somebody tweet something in that vein once. I was like,
promise, it's just occurred to me.
Right now, and applicable to the situation of the Rams right now, the guy I would put on that team is Aeneas Williams from the 99 Hall of Fame safety, ball hawk guy was all over the field.
One of the best.
Right now, if we could drag and drop any guy from history, I'd fill that horribly injured spot with Aeneas Williams, a Hall of Famer, and be confident that the front four, Aaron Donald's either going to sack the quarterback or he's going to panic and throw it to a Hall of Fame safety who's going to run it back for a touchdown.
Oh, man, there were so many options. I mean, I was going back as far as like Deacon Jones, but that's the right answer.
No, we don't need pass rush. I'm filling a hole. I'm going for need right here.
No, that was the right answer. I was thinking middle linebacker.
Okay, honorable mention is London Fletcher.
Thank you.
And I just named two players, by the way, who two fan bases would be like, he's not yours. Arizona fans would be so mad about Aeneas Williams, and Washington fans would be very upset about
Okay, so I will agree with the Arizona fans. I mean, I will see their point. True. I think I see him as, but London Fletcher's a Ram. Like it's done.
I mean, he spent like 10 years in Washington, and he spent about 4 with the Rams.
I do,
but you're right. We drafted him. He won the Super Bowl with us.
I do not care. And he played for a small school here in Ohio. I get the last say. I get the deciding vote on London
You get
Fletcher,
jurisdiction.
my absolute favorite defensive player of all time. So
highly underrated.
So I don't want a final score. I don't want a prediction. I just want after I watch the Rams versus Buccaneers, how will I feel afterwards? What will I say about the game?
I think you'll be satisfied with the game, and I know you don't want a score prediction, but to tell you the truth,
can give it to me.
I am perpetually. I'd never believe that my team's going to win, even when they're good. Even last week, I thought they were bound to choke, even though the Cardinals have been on a monumental collapse.
Yeah,
but I actually think the Rams do win this game. I think Tom Brady's greatest weakness is a really good front four. And the Rams have a really good front four.
That's what I said to my guy Derek today. I said,
I think at the end of this game, you're gonna say Brady is Brady, but I think the Rams are as advertised as they should have been advertised from about the midpoint of the season onward. I think the Rams are hitting their stride. I actually think losing to the Niners in that embarrassing fashion in the last week of the season might actually do them good to be humbled in a horrible way. But I just think they match up really well.
Yeah.
The only caveat I'll drop is the only way they really look like crap in this game is if Sean McVay starts calling a pass play on every down.
I go back to, I think it's all. I just wrote down the time that we said this, the timestamp.
Okay.
So I can put this out there to the universe.
I am prepared to be wrong.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're wrong. So here's what I told Derek today. I said, this is the game. No matter, I know all the great games that Donald's had over the years and blah, blah, blah. This is the game that he can be like, I'm going to go out here. This is going to be my Hall of Fame game.
He needs a legacy game. Yeah.
Michael Strahan did that in the 2007 Super Bowl. Michael Strahan ruined Brady's life, and he's a legend forever now. All the good games he had. I think
every playoffs,
there's
the teams that go to the Super Bowl, winning it is a whole different thing. But the teams that make a run, their best players go on legendary tears of turning it on.
And you got Donald, and you got Von Miller, who knows how to do it. Also did the same thing already. So
Von Miller's got like 5 sacks in the last 6 games. So I mean, people have not been aware that he's settling back into form.
He really has settled in. So shout out. We didn't even get into OBJ, who has become a viable part of the Rams.
I'll just say really quick, everybody's narrative on him.
How do you feel about OBJ?
Everyone's narrative about him is proven to be pretty stupidly wrong. Myself included. I wasn't crazy about the move either, and I was mostly a believer in the rumors about him anyway. Completely untrue. I mean, the guy is bought completely into Rams receiving room. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp especially are very, very unselfish players. You can't enter that room without it. He's fit into that role perfectly. His efficiency in the last few games when he's targeted is through the roof. He's not complaining about targets, but he's getting meaningful targets anyway. He's catching 4 passes a game for 50 yards and a touchdown, and he's happy to do that. So I think he's fit in and exceeded all expectations, I think, for what people thought he would be going there.
Well, let's just say this. We took a what everybody called a diva, selfish wide receiver.
Yeah.
He literally went to play with a wide receiver that, by a lot of accounts, had the greatest season in the history of NFL football and seems to fit in. Like, that says a lot of
the fact that he was constantly rooting for Cooper Kupp to break all the records. He was happy to take 3 targets a game if it meant his buddy here was going to break some records. He was he's bought into the team oriented thing, which again, you're right. I have a complicated relationship with Sean McVay, but there's something to be said about the way he's, I mean, Ramsey, OBJ, these guys have come in here with questions around them. And Leonard Floyd was a guy people weren't sure of. Dante Fowler a few years ago when he got there, and Ndamukong Suh when they went to the Super Bowl. They've had, problem players on the roster since McVay's been there, and there's been 0 issues.
So it kind of brings up the question, like, are these other teams creating these problem players? But it's neither here nor there, because here's
another episode.
And as on the field stuff, I think the Buccaneers' defensive weakness is to the sidelines. And I think Stafford, with the arm strength and with Kupp runs the sideline routes as good as anybody in football. Yes. OBJ is the same thing. I think that's the difference in the game. If you stick to the middle of the field with their safeties, you're in trouble.
Well, the extra yards too. I mean, Kupp is arguably the best yards after catch guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
as to where the Rams, will have trouble defending the middle of the field. I think the Buccaneers have trouble with the edges, and I think Stafford has the arm strength, assuming it's not a tsunami or something roll in. So I have the Rams winning. I have the Rams winning, not just a close one, but like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. That happened.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see this being.
I'm picking a 1-score outcome. I'm thinking like 27-21 or something like that. So
me too. I'm picking like a 2-point outcome. Either way, I have no idea how it's going to go. It might be a missed field goal. It might be a fumble. Who knows? So, all right, that was awesome. I love that. I just want to talk about old Rams players forever.
Oh, by the way, shout out revenge game. Shout out Matt Gay, the Rams kicker, who's been one of the best kickers of football this year. Cut by the Bucks. I think before the Super Bowl run. So. Hopefully there's a little a kicker revenge game, if that's the thing.
That would be great. See, all these storylines.
There you go.
How it goes. All right, so let's stick to the NFC, and we'll go through the rest. Through the rest of the games. They obviously were not as passionate as we are about the Rams, but that's why I have you on, so we can do the Rams report.
Right.
But so the other NFC game is the 49ers go to the Packers. Kind of an old. And this is a kind of a classic, every now and then happens, playoff rivalry. Green Bay didn't play last week. 49ers, I don't even know if they looked good against Dallas. I think the 49ers, in my opinion, have kind of hit that this is as good as we thought we could be. We need something to go our way. Yeah. I have no idea what the weather's going to be. I'll just assume in mid-January it's going to be shitty in Green Bay. I don't know I don't even know who that favors. I think the Packers are better, but I also think if Fred Warner's ankle is okay.
Yes.
If it's not, I don't even think it's close. I don't even think it's close.
I don't know how they stop Aaron Jones without him, essentially.
Yeah, I think without Warner, like, that was the worst thing that happened to me last week. Was when he comes up limping. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. One of my favorite players to watch.
I thought it was a worse injury than when he was grabbing his knee at first, and then they said it was his ankle, and I thought, okay, that's
but I'm still,
looked like he was done.
Yeah, I'm still nervous. He was trying to warm up the whole thing or whatever. Yeah. So this is a cool game. It's gonna be 8:15 at night. I mean, it's going to be cold. Like, even if it's a warm day, it's a warm day in Green Bay.
Oh yeah.
But this is what the Packers played for. They wanted home field advantage. They wanted you to, have to come to the frozen tundra or whatever. Yeah. So as we sit here right now, I've got the Packers by. However the score winds up, I think the 49ers at the end of this game need a quick score, maybe an onside.
Yeah, kick. That's how I'm feeling about it.
So what am I calling it? 9 points? I think I'm calling it like a 9-point game, Packers.
That's pretty much I'm in the same boat as you. I think it's a game where the 49ers are going to hang around and make it really interesting for about 3 quarters, but I don't know if they're going to be able to go 60 minutes. I think it's the same thing. I think it's going to be about a 10-point finish in the end in that sort of area. I just don't think they're Green Bay's defense is incredibly underrated. The whole focus on that team is Devonte Adams and Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones. That defense has really picked it up, and they've had a few guys step into roles this year that have completely changed their defense. I don't know. To me, it's 2 really good defenses who are both strong and good in areas that can exploit the other team. But when you get down to that, the answer in the end is basically quarterback versus quarterback.
Yeah.
In that case, which quarterback is going to overcome the good defense on the other side of the field? And I mean, if you're talking Garoppolo versus Rodgers, it's it's very difficult to force Rodgers to turn the ball over. So if you can't generate turnovers and you're going to go drive to drive with Garoppolo versus Rodgers, you think maybe San Francisco runs the ball well and controls the game and plays physical like they always do. Debo's going to make plays because he seemingly can't help himself but make big plays. But I think 60-minute wise, by the mid-fourth quarter, you're going to be going exactly like you said. San Francisco needs to score. They need to get an onside kick. They need something quick.
Yeah, that's what I think it's going to come down to. I don't think San Francisco gets embarrassed, but I think it comes down to where they're going to ask something from Garoppolo that I don't know that he has. I think
Do you think they go with Trey Lance? Do you think there's a point of the game where Shanahan goes, this season's on the line, what do I have to lose? And this dude's gone anyway. Do you think you go, screw it? He gives an element of that's the Kaepernick story from years ago, right? That he looked at it and went, this guy's got an element that this defense isn't prepared for.
That was Harbaugh, though.
It's well, I know Shanny's got a mixed bag,
I don't know. I think with Garoppolo, like we assume he's leaving this year. You know what? I'd have to look at the contract and everything to know who benefits more by Garoppolo getting embarrassed.
Yeah.
That would be the point. The way I see basically, because it's football, we always deny this. The way I see San Francisco winning is like Devonte Adams has a sprained ankle. Aaron Rodgers gets tackled on the frozen turf and gets a shoulder sting. Like that's what changes these games. Like we all act like again, like you referred to earlier in the show, it's Madden. Like these guys are playing in really cold weather. They haven't played for a week. The first tackle of the game
hurts.
Yeah. Rodgers pulls a hamstring. It's a different game. Like that's the truth of it. I think that's honestly what it takes. I think it takes something to happen to Green Bay
or as has happened to Aaron Rodgers in the past, somebody on the team. Playoff football boils your team down to every individual element. Every punt, every kick, every return. Unless Green Bay's return guy, drops a couple of punts or something, like that, San Francisco is going to need to find a way. If San Francisco relies on trying to make Aaron Rodgers make mistakes, they're done. They need to find somebody else there. They need to force a mistake somewhere else in that roster.
They need an extra score. They need a sudden change.
Yeah, they need to force fumble on a punt to give them the ball, in Green Bay's end. They need
something dumb. A ball skips off a helmet, return for a touchdown. Like what's happening here?
Something
they
like
need
that.
An extra point. So I'll ask you right now, like since we're done with the NFC, I got to ask you. You got Devonte Adams in Green Bay.
Yep.
You got Cooper Kupp, Rams.
Oh no.
Who do you draft tomorrow? You can only pick one.
I actually mean this genuinely. Cooper Kupp is probably currently my favorite player in the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay. Straight up. I was a huge fan of him being drafted by the Rams. He was a guy that even before we drafted him, I thought, oh my God, this kid looks great. I hope the Rams get him. I love him, but despite the year he's had, I still think Devonte Adams is one of the most brilliant technicians I played with him when I played football. The guy's understanding of space and body movement is otherworldly. Not to mention the shit he pulled against the Rams when we played them. Should have pissed me off, but he's pointing at our corner going, who's this guy before the snap?
Yeah.
And then going, throw it to me deep. And Aaron Rodgers goes, okay, wings it to him deep for a 60-yard gain. And he turns around and goes, I don't know who this guy is. Why is he covering me? And I thought He's so right, and I appreciate that. So I
I
would draft Devonte
honestly
Adams, honestly.
I honestly think if you switch the 2, they have similar seasons. I think in the system, like,
Oh,
if
man, yeah.
Devontae plays in that system, I really don't think there's
But
I
to be
that's
fair,
why
they're different guys. I
they're
mean, they're
totally
asked to do
different.
different things. You know, Cooper
Oh,
Kupp is more
Devon
versatile in the way he sort of moves around the field,
yeah.
but Devonte Adams is a pure wide receiver, is
Devonte Adams
godly.
in the first 5 yards from the line of scrimmage is one of is
I
he's
think he's the
so good.
best. I think he's by far the best.
I think he's by far the best.
Yeah, I think he's the best phone booth guy at receiver in
Great.
this
There you know
generation.
what? Let me write
He
this
is
let me write this
every
down. Yeah.
time
At
somebody gets near
55
him,
minutes, phone booth guy.
he's a ghost. I mean, he's a ghost.
It's
In
unbelievable.
a person gets near him running a route, and
Yeah.
it's like chasing a wisp of cloud. Like,
Yeah.
it's
I said
incredible.
that earlier. Ohio State has a guy, Garrett Wilson. He's going into the pros now. And Ohio State was on the 5-yard line, and he runs a fade route from the 5-yard line. And not only did he get open, he was wide open from
Yeah.
the 5. I'm like, and that's Adams. That's what he reminds me of.
They're
And
running
again,
hard, man, and
yeah,
he's
I'm not comparing their like what they have to do to each other. I think they're as of today, they're two best. I
sure.
mean,
Yeah,
who knows?
absolutely.
So we'll jump over the AFC here. It's not near as exciting. But let's see. The first game is the Bengals at Titans.
Yeah,
This looks like it's Saturday.
yeah.
Um, I have no idea how I feel about this game. I think the Titans having a week off hurts them only because Vrabel, I think, is just a rhythm guy and a week to week
Yeah.
guy and a feel it out guy. But what I'll say about the Titans, they're one of the few teams this year. We talked about pad and stats earlier. The
Mhm.
Titans have actually beat a lot of decent teams. They've had
Yes.
some bad losses. They fought through the Henry injury. They just find a way on both sides of the ball to kind of figure it out. So the Titans are a really good team, and yet everybody in America and Canada is like, I have no idea who starts for the Titans. Like, honestly, nobody knows anything about the Titans, and they're 12-5, and they're the 1 seed in the
Yeah.
NFC. You got the Bengals, first playoff win in over 30 years. They got the kid Burrow, they got Chase, like everything is going right. But last week's game, I mean, okay, here's what you're going into the game on. We beat Las Vegas. Well, a lot of teams beat Las Vegas. So,
Yeah.
it's up and down there. So I've got the Titans just winning this game, basically because the players on their team just know how to win a game. If that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Yes.
They'll win by 8, but yet it won't be close. It'd be the opposite of the Rams Buccaneers game, kind of how we talked about. So I've got the Titans winning by 8 points in a kind of a dog game, and Cincinnati goes home like great season. What do you think?
I agree. I think Cincinnati has vastly exceeded their expectations, and I would be very scared of them in the future. Burrow to Chase looks like it's
Oh,
gonna change the record books for quite a long time. I mean, those guys have a symbiotic mental connection that is indescribable. That just isn't something you can scheme or think up. They're on the same page. This game is actually the game between like my two best friends' teams. My buddy Chico is a Bengals friend, and my
shout out to Chico.
fucking a co-host Matt is a lifelong Titans fan. So the two of them, they're feeling kind of somber because one of them's going to be miserable after this weekend. But I agree with you. The two things to watch, and I'm stealing this from them, is because obviously I go for my inside sources. The Titans front four disrupting Joe Burrow. That's a matchup that if their defensive line crushed, Matt Stafford when they played.
And the Cincinnati line is not great.
Yes,
Cincinnati O-line is not
but
great. I
on
think
the
give up the
flip-
most sacks in the league.
Exactly. But on the flip, Tennessee's corners are really suspect, and that leaves an opening for Jamar Chase, and I think also the guy who's been lost in the shuffle there, T. Higgins, who's a great player.
Oh, yeah.
Those two guys could exploit the corner. So if Cincinnati can protect Joe Burrow and give him the time to find his guys, Tennessee's in trouble. But if
I mean,
Tennessee
that's a
gets
huge
home,
if.
Tennessee gets home, they can throw them completely off their game. But it's just going to come down to it's going to come down to that. Essentially, I think the passing game of the Bengals versus the pass defense of the Titans is what's going to decide it.
What if supposedly Henry's back and healthy.
Well,
If
from what I know, the efficiency numbers and their output of their offense, they're like the Brooklyn Nets. When they have Henry, Julio Jones, and AJ Brown on the field all at once, they're through the roof offensive efficiency wise. But those three guys are never on the field together.
that never happens.
Never happens. So if those three guys are on the field, then you get the chance to see what the Instagram posts were all about in the preseason. This dangerous offense.
Well, can we say this? And I was, I led the charge of the 2021 Titans weren't going to be, the Tecmo Raiders.
Right.
Can we all just look back now and go, they weren't like Julio Jones, because here's what I said. Tennessee had a great offense last year. Their numbers were awesome. And this summer they get Julio and they're like, oh, they're gonna be unstoppable. And I'm like, well, if they get better, that means they're going to be the greatest offense anybody's ever seen. So if you say that out loud, that never made sense. So I just want to look back and be like, it wasn't the greatest offense we ever saw.
Well, it's a little like the Rams, like what would the team have been if all three of those guys had been able to play a full season of offense? I think at least a couple of their wins or a couple of their losses flipped to wins. And I mean, we're talking about a team that was first place in the AFC. So if they can figure that out on the fly essentially this week, which is a huge ask, then I don't know if they're one of the anything to stop that.
And the Titans are one of these teams, like we've saw this so many years in the NFL. Like you just keep fighting, and like this year you do. Yeah. I don't know. You remember how it used to be.
Never out of a game. They're never out of a game.
You would win a wild card game, then the next year lose the next, the divisional round. And the next year you won 2 then you lost the championship, and then you won a Super Bowl. It was like, oh, it takes you like 4 or 5 years to get there. Even Dallas did that. Like a lot of people don't remember, like the great Dallas Cowboys teams lost a wild card game before they went on to be.
How many the Chiefs make the playoffs?
Exactly. So are the Chiefs and Titans just destined to meet in the AFC Championship game? Because the Titans at this point, they know how to handle the extra week. They know the extra intensity, just blah, 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 blah. They have every single advantage. I don't see Cincinnati coming in after a team that hasn't done this in 31 years but I'm not saying they can't.
Well, I think the one thing about that Bengals game last week is I thought they played about 15 to 20 good minutes of football, and then the Raiders basically just obliterated their own feet for the rest of the game.
That's what I hear.
If the Raiders played halfway decent, they should have won that game by a score and a half or so. But
full disclosure, I was in the middle of a snowstorm and I was working.
Yeah.
All I know about that game is through highlights, and everybody tells me that like, no, it wasn't a good game. It was a close game. It wasn't a good game. So
I mean, holding offense was I heard. I don't know if I've ever heard it that many times in a playoff game. Oakland consistently would get 20 yards and then lose 10 going back the other way. It was. That's what I mean about the Bengals. I'm not sure the Bengals are going to be able to match up with an experienced playoff team like Titans. And I think they were going up against an upstart sort of we're happy to be here Raiders team, and now they're going against a team that's third real good crack at a championship, and they're serious about it. So
it's a veteran team. And we saw it last year with the Eagles. They go into Tampa Bay, like that kind of situation. So I agree. I think the Titans got this one, but good job Bengals, and we'll see. I mean, again, a sprained ankle.
I mean, what do I know?
Yeah. I don't know. Who knows? So then the late game, and this is what we all assumed with the AFC Championship game. It's kind of been weird. So you got the Bills at the Chiefs. They're going to Kansas City, 6:30 on Sunday night. And it's a weird game because both of these teams, as good as they are, we expect them to be back here, not this level. We expect them to be in the AFC Championship game. Right. They both had mid-season lulls. And, you and I talked about it. You can go back to our show. I guarantee we did a show to where the Chiefs were, like, probably below 500. Like, what's wrong? Or the Bills, like, the Bills lost a few in a row. Like, what's wrong with Josh Allen? And then late season, Chiefs take off. Yeah. And then last week, I think we should talk about this first. Did Josh Allen play one of the best games in NFL history?
He certainly did everything right. I mean, for the whole damn game. That is a player playing at the highest possible level that he's capable of playing of. You'd have to imagine. I mean, if Josh Allen plays that way 4 games in a row, yeah, the Bills are gonna win the Super Bowl, but
Yeah.
not many people play to the absolute peak
No.
of their potential every single week. So, it's
That
that's
was
the fun of
unreal.
watching, right?
Yeah, that's how I say it. So I love this game. I cannot wait. Like I just cannot wait. This is one of these games, like I do a lot of, with the podcast, I do a lot of like analyzing and sitting back. And sometimes I'll just tell the guys like at Off the Ball Network, shout out. I'll
Yeah.
just say, I'm just going to watch this game and enjoy it, guys. And then I'll worry about the replay
This
afterwards. I'll talk
this
about it
is the game.
afterwards. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the game. Like I'm just going to sit back and
This
enjoy
is
it.
Stephon Diggs last year standing and watching them celebrate their AFC championship.
Yes.
This is
That was a bold move to do, by the way. I don't know if
the
I
Bills. This
that was
is
very
the game Buffalo's been waiting for
Oh,
12
the Bills
months.
have to win this game.
Yeah.
We talked about the Rams earlier. I think McVay needs to win this week. I think the Bills have to win this week, or it's another. I'll just say it's a failure. Like it's you.
Sure.
If the Bills don't win this week, it's a failure. And the Chiefs, I think, would say the same thing because you can't hang on to that Super Bowl win for forever. That'll get a team in trouble too. So both teams have everything at stake.
Right.
Both teams have everything in place to win this game. So X's and O's wise, I think quarterback wise, Allen has a slight advantage over the Chiefs defense. I think the Chiefs defense is they take away, they really aggressive on the short stuff. So they're great against average quarterbacks. When you get past that, I don't know. The pass rush is all right, but the Chiefs defense, their defensive line, if Allen decides to just like roll out of the pocket, they don't have the linebackers. They don't have the front seven to chase him.
But you're dead on that. They're good in sort of the lower third of the field. But the way that Josh Allen extends plays and the way he throws on the run and can just flick the wrist for a 40-yard gain.
Yeah,
their back end defense is what could kill them. Is players getting behind them. Isaiah McKenzie, I believe his name is for Buffalo, is I think maybe one of the most important players in this entire game.
One of the most surprising players in the league right now.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I was thinking actually while you're talking about that, I remember us saying 2 things about each of these teams back early in the season when they were both struggling a little bit. And we said that for Kansas City, their issue was that they had their whole big play offense had been solved and they needed to figure out new ways to move the ball. They've done that. They figured that out.
They sure did.
Got a lot of underneath. They've got a lot of screens, a lot of misdirection. Jerick McKinnon's turning into a really good player for them out of the backfield too. And the Bills, we said they desperately had to figure out some way to run the football effectively, and they seem to have done that as well. So these are 2 offenses that have fixed seemingly what was ailing them. So you're right. It comes down to, I think this one comes down to which defense is capable of hanging with the other team the whole time. I think Buffalo's back end safeties will keep Kansas City from being able to do what they really truly like to do, which is take the top off. I mean, Hyde and Jordan Poyer are arguably one of the best safety combos in the entire league and incredibly underrated, both of them as well. So I agree with you. I think the back ends of these defenses, both quarterbacks can exploit them, but one of them's got a much better matchup than the other.
Yeah. I in this game, on full disclosure, I've got the Bills. I've just got the Bills winning it. I mean, honestly, if you had to give me a point spread, I might give you -1. Like, I really don't think it's going to be decided till the end. I think Josh Allen is just all year I've watched him, even the bad games. It wasn't because of him.
Yeah.
We've seen. It's so hard to explain because it's hard to say that I saw Mahomes exposed in the Super Bowl and Allen didn't make it to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, but as of this year, I think Allen has just kind of figured it out a little bit. I think his running ability I think Holmes is settled into that 500 million. And I don't think Mahomes is going to try to exploit, the run. Just like we saw Aaron Rodgers last year. Like he goes to the Super Bowl if he just like puts his head down and runs.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just say it. And he
did an Elway.
Yeah. You're there. You go.
I will say, I think
Go ahead. Allen's at Elway level. I think you just nailed it.
Yeah.
I think Allen is at that point to where he's like, I understand.
That's a scary sight, Jeff. That's a 6'6", 240-pound guy who runs right at you. I mean, whoa.
I think he takes advantage of it, and I think I think he wins this game. I really do.
I think the Chiefs win it, and the only reason I do is I think the difference in this game, as much as I think the Bills have the back end of the defense, and totally can see them winning this game easily. I think I think home field is actually the difference this time. I think if this game was being played in Buffalo, I'd be saying Bills all the way. I think that being in Kansas City is gonna rattle them just enough to give Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City is a team that will score
Yeah.
continuously.
And Kelsey is rejuvenated. We were
Yeah.
you and I
was
trashed
hard on
Kelsey.
him. I
You and I
know.
trashed
I
Kelsey.
traded him away in fantasy football. I trashed him so hard. I mean, there you go.
He's so good.
Yeah.
I think this is similar to I think it would have been 3 years ago now when Mahomes loses to Tom Brady at the end of the game, you know,
Yeah.
when Brady's last Super Bowl in New England. I think that's the kind of game. It's like when it's over, I don't really feel like we'll think a team blew it or got blown out or whatever. I think we'll be like, wow, that other guy is really good.
As long
I
as
hope
we're
so.
not talking about the refs, that's good enough for me.
Great point. I can't even do that anymore. That's all we hear. It's all we hear. And by the way, Dallas, you were lucky to even get a shot at the end of that game. I didn't even want to dignify
Can I put myself on record with my opinion?
Let's do this. We're done with the predictions. Okay, let's go through the predictions.
I think the call at the end of the Dallas game to run the ball up the middle was a brilliant play call, poorly executed by the Cowboys. I don't know how the hell every player I ever see in a hurry-up situation immediately looks for the ref and hands them the ball, as every guy knows to do, and Dak Prescott forgot to do the most important thing.
His center grabbed the ball.
And then their center boxes the ref out and knocks him half over.
Yeah.
It was the
I think that's called coaching, Dan.
That's what I mean. And Mike McCarthy said that. He said that's the thing you can't forget. He shouldn't have forgot to do that. And it's everyone being like, why would you do that? I'm like, because the odds of a pass interference or all that stuff, you know, chucking a ball from the 50 a couple times, terribly bad odds. But I agreed with Mike McCarthy. Taking a shot with one shot from the 25 is better than two shots from the 50 by miles, by absolute miles. You can get zip on the ball into a window and a guy just has to pin it to his chest from the 25-yard line. So I think it was a great play call. You know, San Francisco had all their guys literally standing on the sideline and left the wide open middle of the field. They just botched it. Every guy should have been bang right on the line, ready to go. Ball to the ref, down, snap, in, 2 seconds left in the game. It was possible. They blew it.
We should have got a play. So I'm disappointed that the last thing you said was give Dallas any credit for anything, even though you made a valid point out of it.
Yeah.
And, I can't argue with it. I'm just going to go like
it's their own damn fault that they were even in that position. I mean, their own fault. I read a great piece today on somebody on Twitter said today that Troy Aikman's quote today about CeeDee Lamb, the idea that he got targeted once or had one catch when they were playing soft coverage on them. This whole idea, like this whole thing, Aikman said, he said, if this was back in my day with Michael Irvin and I saw a corner playing soft coverage, I'd just throw the ball in his area and watch him be a better pro than the other guy. So, I mean, Dallas's terrible coaching that got them in that scenario.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they had a brief moment of kind of a really interesting, I think, smart play call to save their season.
It was so close to being smart.
And then their franchise quarterback completely missed, forgot to tie his shoes at the end. It was terrible. So
a funny thing is the stat I heard this week, Tom Brady has thrown as many touchdowns since the age of 40 as Troy Aikman did his entire career.
Wow.
Football is different, man.
Yeah.
But you know who's not different? Me and Dan. That was great, man. I enjoyed it. Again, everyone go listen to Assorted Goods. Even if you're a sports fan, you'll listen. It's a gateway. You'll listen to the NIL stuff. You'll listen to concussion stuff. And the next thing you'll know, you'll be going on and on because Dan does his homework and really, really puts out an informed show. And it's a credit. It's a credit to you, Dan, of how good that thing is, bro.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. It's very kind of you. So, I mean, I hope anybody who wants to give it a try. I mean, for sports fans, you should know. Sports was I should just be doing sports content.
You probably should.
I'm a ridiculously over the top, obnoxious sports person, but I just my content game, I guess to call it.
Don't do it, Dan. Don't fall into this. Don't fall into the pattern.
but it's just something completely different. I know.
We just did an hour and 14 minutes of awesome show, and it's going to be deleted.
How breezy that was. See how breezy that was.
3 days.
You know, I put so much work into that show that you know it's so painstaking, and then but I can do 7 hours of talking football if you want me to do it. So I might be in the wrong field.
That was awesome. So, everybody check Dan's show out. I'll put his link in the notes or whatever. Again, Dan, thanks so much. I don't know, maybe a Super Bowl preview. We have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, bro. We got to do something.
Hey, look, if they're in, I'll be here. I mean, just if nothing else, than to just be high on the emotional spike
well,
that
we know I can't text you again until like Monday or I guess Sunday night.
Sunday afternoon. Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I hope it's all good. So thanks everybody. It's Jeff Feed Sports. Check out offtheballnetwork.substack.com for everything everybody's doing. Enjoy the playoffs, enjoy football, and we will see you soon.